Hey, 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 everyone. Good to see folks coming on already on Facebook and on YouTube. God bless you. We have some folks on the phone as well. All participants are muted and they can unmute themselves. Let us know where you are viewing from. We're going to get started. I'm excited about this particular session. So these are our live sessions for those of you who may be joining for the first time. And this particular live session is our part 2 of Sustainable Economic Future. We had Brentley on maybe a couple weeks, and he talked more about a family, sustaining the family, and that economic future. And this time we wanted to bring him on to speak about and to talk about ministry, and maybe even tag a little bit on business as well. So if you're coming in, this is a financial session. However, I'm not sure. He's a man of God. And so I'm going to bring him on. He knows the word. He can probably preach with the best of them. But his calling is finances, and this is really his assignment at present. And so I want to bring our guest on, Brentley. How you doing?
Happening? What's up?
What's going on? So I saw you're just coming off of another session that was really powerful. I tuned in and that was great. So I definitely appreciate your financial acumen and being able to be flexible in so many different ways. And it's amazing that the product, and not just the product, but the information that you have certainly reaches a very, very wide breadth of people and circumstances. And so this is really, really important. And as you know, ministry is important to me, right? So is business. I love business. I can talk it with the best of them, right? There are things and avenues that you and I even have talked about. And so again, you did a phenomenal job on the part 1. I think a lot of people really were encouraged, and even got them thinking about, what do I do for the family? So that's really good. But this time I wanted to focus on ministry, right? I'm a pastor. I also have an evangelistic outreach ministry that is aside from me pastoring. I'm also, a consultant. I've acted as a consultant before. I'm a project manager. And there are times where I've talked to you about going full time as a consultant, right? And the implications of that. And so there may be viewing some folks who are interested in ministry, who are aspiring pastors, who are currently pastors, and maybe they're not looking at us live right now, but they're going to look on the replay because, so many pastors are doing evening 7 o'clock Bible studies and different things at this same time. So we may have some replay watchers who are pastors. And then there may even be some folks who are small business owners or business owners who essentially, if they don't work, they don't eat, right? And a lot of times what happens is we're so busy working, we're so busy building the kingdom, if you will, that we don't plan for the future when we're not able to build the kingdom. So if you can, I know you're going to help us. So if you can, again, because I don't know if there's someone new that might watch this, just introduce us a little bit to you, what you do, and that sort of thing, and then go into what we came here to talk about: sustainable economic future, focusing on ministry and business as well. All right.
Absolutely, I appreciate it. Let's hop to it. My name is Brentley Wright, from Rocky Mount, North Carolina. Oldest of 4. Raised in a family full of faith. Mother and father ministers and pastors. Grandmother was a minister. Aunts, uncles. I just come from a whole family with a strong lineage of faith. So I was in church a lot, and actually I love ministry. I think I have a heart for ministry, and what the Lord has done for me, it just helped me see ministry on the other side of a different component of ministry as of lately, with just the work he has had me do over the last 10 years. And even up until this point. And I have a financial firm called Brentley Financial. Our position here is to place you in a position of strength so you don't have to liquidate any personal or business asset due to a disruption of cash flow or your paycheck. And so our job is to make sure things are sustainable for you. If you want to talk about wealth, we got to send you down to Johnny down the street. You know, we are about preserving what you're building, preserving the family, and eventually that just ties into your legacy. And so I really appreciate Pastor Bianca having me on, and St. James's lovely church, and being able to just be a partner with them and a resource, but just they just developing a great friendship. And Pastor Bianca is right. She's tell her all the time, you're probably about 5 steps ahead of the average pastor in regards to work and sustainability for yourself in what we see. So, I just want to kind of hit some components today that I believe pastors need to hear. In addition, not only hear, but implement. The word says not only, hey, we can't just be hearers of the word, but we also have to be doers of the word. And I believe that that's not just communicating the gospel at its highest level, at its highest level. I also believe that we have, according to Galatians chapter 6, verses 1-5, we have a load to examine. We have to examine our life, as Paul says, because you all have to carry your own portion. And part of your portion is, or carry your weight, carry your weight. Part of your weight is what you're doing in ministry right now. And so I just want to talk about ministry succession, and we want to make it successful. And so ministry succession, success planning. So, I believe just like a business is here 150 years or 200 years, I also believe that the church can be the same way. My church at Baptist Grove, I'm under the leadership of Pastor Bianca. Our church, I believe, has been here over 140 years. I would love to see that continue to move forward to another 150 years if God allows that. But the only way for that to even happen, according to our ministry and in your ministry, is that we implement some things in order to make sure that it's actually there. And so I got a few notes that I actually want to give you guys tonight. And one of those points, and here's a point I want to make tonight. Pastor, you are currently in a position to properly establish the operations of your ministry for the next generation. You are currently in the position to properly establish the operations of your ministry in the next generation. When I say operations, I'm not talking about the gospel tracks. I'm not talking about gospel curriculum. I'm actually talking about the fellowship, the institution, the actual local church, your fellowship that you're leading. How do we look at how does this church last over the next 30, 50, 100 years after you? How can we establish our ministry for life after us? And that's what succession planning is all about. Truth be told, if you're in business, we understand that business succession planning normally takes anywhere from 15 to 20 years, because not only does the business have to have its chemistry, its ethos together, it also has to come together with governance and responsibility and roles, and it has operations that have to continue on year after year or generation after generation. Well, the same is likewise for anyone that's in ministry. Ministry has to continue on for life after you. And so succession planning can take anywhere from 15 to 20 years. But once God has given you your team or of elders, or you have a plurality there, or whatever your structure may be, you might be one elder led with deacons and ministers. At the end of the day, you are currently in position to properly establish the operations of your ministry for the next generation. Part of your work must be sitting down with your elder board, your trustees, your deacons, and going through how do we properly, as a last act of stewardship, transition this ministry to the next generation in a successful way, in a way that they have enough money to continue to work and build on to the work that we currently are doing. And there is a way to do that. And there also is a way to look at it. I love business. God has given me a business heart. And I like what he's doing in my heart. I love to say that sometimes business and being business minded can even be better than Bible school, and I might mess with you a little bit on that, because in theology or seminary, when you're studying, what you're learning is the Bible. Where there's a gap is operations. Most of you probably will hire an XP, an executive pastor, that has somewhat business capability. He has a business capacity, or she has a business capacity, who has a good long track record in business, probably built a business, sold it off, understands contracts and negotiations, understands market territory, how to go in and develop on-site campuses, etc. And so that player is on your team. And if you don't have someone like that, I quickly recommend that you do, if you know that you're not like that, so you can do your primary role of leading and feeding and providing and protecting proper nourishment for your people and teaching your people. I also believe that if we grab a hold of that, then we close the gap that we see most pastors have. And trust and believe, I'm not here to beat you up. I do want to say, if anyone knows your role, I know it. I've pastored. I've been around pastors most of my entire life, as far as back as I can remember. I've always been around eldership. I understand eldership. I understand the dynamics of eldership. I understand the dynamics of your role. If you come to my house and look at my library, I study pastoralship a great deal because of leadership. I think the two places to study leadership would be one at the presidential side of things, and then also at the pastoral side of things, because those two roles are ambidextrous, and they're just so emotional and have a lot of emotional roller coasters, as Samuel Chan would say in his book, Leadership Pain. And so, what we want to be able to think about is, how do we transition our church and our operations in such a way that the next generation is about to ball out for the love and for the glory of Christ. And I believe with all of our hearts, no matter what we do, nothing would be better rewarded in people than the work of ministry. And so I'm talking to you today as somebody who's on your side. I want to see you win. But here's what I know: the same things that are implemented and executed in business can also be executed for you. Here's why. I say that to say, I need you to look at your establishment, 501c3, as a business, because essentially that's what it is. I know we attach faith to it, but the 501c3 is actually a business. Not government rule, but under the guidelines of 501c3, there's a budget. There's some operations that have to take place in order to be operating at a maximum level that not only benefits the leadership team, but also benefits the people. And so anytime you are buying buildings, anytime that you have an annual budget, anytime that you are hiring staff, anytime that you are making sure that you are buying the right things in order to make ministry tick, you're doing business. And it's the business of economics, really. I believe that we should see our churches as economics, that we are providing a service for our people. And we're doing that right now at all costs. Some of us do it higher. Some of us do it, not as high. But at the end of the day, we are making some strides. And so what we do and how we work with churches, we come in and we deal with the elder board. We deal with the eldership team. Normally, that's who we're dealing with, the eldership team. We may have to make a case into the eldership, to the board, the church board, where we have to come in and educate the church board on how to sustain financially, how to keep the operations protected. And then also we go down into the elder board and look at the eldership. And so that's a twofold for us. And I'll get into the one of those after what I talk about the operations. So this is a little technical, but I'm going to give you some some starter points that after I finish up tonight, I want you to call me. I want you to send me an email, call me, send your executive pastor my way. Let's talk. Let's have a discussion. I'm normally, because I understand your role, I normally deal with the executive pastor. He's the liaison, or she is the liaison between the rest of the eldership and the lead pastor, so we can continue to get things done. And so you can do what you got to do in regards to taking care of the flock. And so tonight I want to talk about one key element that we implement. Our firm will help you implement in your church to make sure your church is going to be here financially. We call it ministry proof, recession proof. And what we want to do is transfer financial risk of not having any money for the next 100 years. And so how can we do it in a way that's beneficial? So I want to talk about the purpose, the power, and tax advantage of key person insurance. You know it, you heard it before. You probably have some, but you don't understand it well. Most of you get key person insurance because someone just told you to get key person insurance. That's what you've learned in your eldership training or some leadership training down the line. But no one really goes and dissects key person insurance the way that business owners understand it. And even if you're a business owner right now listening to this, key person insurance will only benefit you if you plan to pass a business down or let an employee take that business over. And part of it deals with the exit strategy of a business owner, just like it would deal with the exit strategy of a pastor. Every pastor needs an exit strategy. You have to be able to do more than just preach. You need to be able to have certain operations in place that yield to your pay dividends to your exit strategy down the line. So point number one, that what we want to discuss on that is, number one, what key person insurance does. It brings financial protection to your annual budget. So most of you may have a budget of $500,000 or $1 million or maybe $250,000. That's the annual budget. The reason we implement key person insurance is because there's some key people that are driving revenue to the ministry, just as a business owner that's driving revenue to his business or her business. She has employees. They have operations, they have overhead. Well, the ministry has overhead as well. The ministry has employees, and the ministry has a mission and mandate from God to continue to go and get souls saved and make disciples. That doesn't stop when you stop being the pastor. That actually continues on and has done so for over 2,000 years now. The mission for us is to make sure we can do it in a better way. So key person insurance is assuming that there is some key people in the ministry, pastor and other pastors alike, who have specific roles that are in subjection to one another through plurality, that understands you have a role, the lead pastor has a role. There's a finance pastor. There's a pastor of discipleship. There's a pastor of family enrichment and marriages. There's a pastor of youth, and there's a worship pastor. Each pastor has their own specific role. And if one key person or key pastor was to die, I think I may, hey, you know what, Bianca, Pastor Bianca, I may just term that now key pastor insurance. I may do that. I may just do that. Thank you, Holy Spirit. Key pastor insurance. So if one of pastors die, then the other pastor should not be able to step into his role because it's going to take away from the current role that that pastor is currently doing. So key person and key pastor insurance brings financial protection to your annual budget. If there's $1 million, that's an annual budget you guys are bringing in through tithes and offerings. If you, the pastor, dies tomorrow, then your church should have an indemnification plan that at least replaces 1 to 2 years of your annual budget back into the ministry in a tax-free way. That's what key person insurance does. It is insurance that your ministry takes out. on you as a key pastor, the main pastor, the lead pastor, in addition to other pastors. The ministry takes out that insurance, and when you die, the ministry will receive those proceeds from the insurance carrier tax-free. Nothing like $500,000 tax-free. Nothing like $1 million tax-free for us to be able to continue to do God's work. The reality is, it's not intelligent for someone to die and nobody gets paid. Not even in your own family, not in your own business, and definitely not in your ministry. As pastors, we have to be forward thinking. As pastors, we have to be thinking about the souls that our specific ministry of what God has given us that's has to do beyond us, whether we retire, whether there's an exit strategy, or whether we transition to be with the Lord. Number two, it is operating capital for the ministry. It's additional resources and employee salaries. Here's the deal. If the key pastor dies, then it keeps the ministry. It puts locks on the ministry from trying to go out and rush to hire a new pastor. Because when you're trying to hire a new pastor, things can get a little murky. And the problem with that is we don't take our time. There's not enough prayer because someone is trying to find a pastor fast. And what happens is we probably bring in the wrong pastor that may not have the heart for the ministry the way that we would, as pastors, want him to have the heart for the ministry. So when the key pastor dies, the ministry has money to say, no, we're not going to rush. We're not going to rush. Pastor so-and-so has been great to us. Pastor so-and-so has left us with enough money that we can keep the doors open and we can continue to pay people and pay our staff and pay, keep the mission going, just like a business owner would with his own business. And we don't have to rush to find another pastor. We're actually going to take our time because we got the resources. And so operating capital, if you know business, then you know everything rests on cash flow. You know the money you make, the money you bring in, that's the lifeline of the ministry. You can have people in the seats, or the ministry term for that might be butts in the seats. But at the end of the day, if no capital is coming through those hands, then ministry will not be as effective as we want it to be. And so it is additional operating capital, just like your home needs capital to pay that mortgage, just like your business needs capital to pay those employees, your ministry needs capital in order to be sustained and have a full succession plan that is successful in the end. Number three, that's tax-free income. It's tax-free income. I don't know anybody in their right mind that will pass up tax-free income. As you know, life insurance or key pastor insurance would be tax-free income. The reason it's tax-free income is because you guys are paying for it and it's not a tax deduction for you. Remember, 501c3s don't pay the taxes. The only way you pay the taxes is if the 501c3 then creates a for-profit organization, and that organization makes money and pays the taxes on that money that the for-profit makes, and the rest of that money goes back to the 501c3 to sustain the 501c3. It's a beautiful model. It's a model that you need to have and get with a proper CPA that will help you form that so you can be forward thinking into helping business owners in your ministry leverage their gifts and talents and businesses to help sustain the ministry. It's a model that you need to be thinking it through, and it's a model that I know will work. But it's tax-free income. And so once you pay for that, because it's not a tax deduction for you guys, you will get those proceeds tax-free. Number four, it is protection against membership giving. Let's just be real. If you're the lead pastor, people got an affinity for you. Okay. People love you. They're there most of the time because of you. Let's just call the elephant. Let's just address the elephant in the room. Most of the time, they connect with your leadership, but they don't connect with other leadership the way that they connect with you. They'll call you before they call anybody else, before they call the pastor of discipleship, before they call the money pastor, before they call the worship leader pastor. They're going to be calling the lead pastor. And most times, if the lead pastor transitions on or has an exit strategy after that, or really, let's just talk about in this case, if he transitions to be with the Lord, maybe some of those members' finances will transition as well. And the way they transition is not to be spiteful, but maybe they can't stay there at the church because they don't believe there'll be another pastor like you that will serve them. And we know that God will also supply and be able to help with that. But additionally, those members' finances will leave. So what do we do when you do transition? Because you're going to die. Then you have to have that indemnification plan that says, we'll put this X amount of money into the operating capital, which prevents us from not receiving any proceeds from our members, and our doors still stay open. It's amazing what can happen when members see the doors are still open. The ministry is not going in lack because it was properly prepared on the back end. We prevented a lot of things. I promise you, probably most members will continue to give better when they see the prevention had been taking place and we were properly prepared. Number 5 is debt elimination. I believe that if you have debt now, if you transition to be with the Lord, then you're able to also take that money and pay off the building. You're able to take that money and maybe possibly pay off all of your buildings if you're multi-site, pay off some other loans that you may have. And I believe that money will be able to eradicate debt, and you can do ministry at a high level. Number 6, I believe it helps to fund the ministry mission in partner with a bank. Most of you, if you want to expand, you go talk to a bank, and the bank may ask for collateral. Well, a key pastor insurance for the bank may need a key person insurance policy, and they are able to use your policy as collateral so you can get your loan to expand. How beautiful is that? How amazing is that? And I believe most ministries need to take more advantage of that service so you can expand the right way, especially if you are financially or fiscally astute and you have a good team around you that honors and knows how to expand very well. I believe that if you can use that as collateral, you'll be doing the right way. We have some churches that we're helping right now. They're using their key person as collateral. They're expanding, and it is nothing like seeing growth in ministry and God. Number 7, it keeps the doors open. I've talked about this before. I mentioned it earlier. Nothing like keeping your doors open for ministry. When there's operating capital, nobody can say anything. You took the tithes and offerings, and you were very, very prudent with it, and you made sure you prepared well. And then here's a personal one, but it's number 8. It's family inheritance. I can't tell you the last time I've seen some wives cry because the wives were actually going to be set up with this plan. Normally, when we come talk to an eldership board or some leaders, the leaders of the church, most of them, we have to talk about leaving an inheritance for their wives, their spouses, or their children. The reality is most pastors have a wife who doesn't work, or in some cases have a husband who doesn't work. The reality is you're providing for them, and they've been out of work for the last 20, 30 years. And this world is ever evolving, and it's changing every single day. If you transition to be with the Lord and you don't leave your family anything, and your wife will look at the ministry and say, all of the work my husband did, y'all didn't do nothing for my husband. And ain't nobody bring no chicken. Ain't nobody had we had a funeral, but ain't nobody bring no check. Yada, yada, yada. And they're going to end up hating ministry. And eventually that turns into hatred for God. Your children will look at the ministry with a bad eye. So what we propose to most leaders is the key person insurance, part of the key person insurance goes to the church, but then also part of the key person insurance or key pastor insurance will go to the family to set the family up so they can sustain and live on for life after you. So I am promising you something. If you properly plan well, your church will be provided some amazing things because you understand succession, and it's the same as a business. The Lord had to, just a personal story, because I grew up in the ministry, the Lord had to really get a lot of religion out of me. And the way he did that was just put me out here in the workforce, in the marketplace. And I've been fortunate to work for some great companies with great strategies and great comprehensive planning, in addition to some good methods and initiatives. And I've learned this stuff. I've also, like I said, our firm is in the insurance and financial services industry, and you get to just see the formulas for mortality and the formulas for morbidity. And so when you look at securing your operations, we talking operations. We know you can preach. We know you can pull it. We know you know the text. We know you didn't save some souls. We didn't see people shout all over the building. What happens when you transition though? Will the doors close? And see, watch this now. If you really want to know how effective your ministry is, if you close your doors, would the city miss you? Would the city miss you? See, we need capital for the city. We need capital to be able to bless the city. We need capital to make more disciples. We need capital to be able to buy coffee shops and some other things so we can expand ministry the way God wants us to do it. That's the attitude we have to have when it comes to the money and having some funded proper preparations behind us. Lastly, I want to talk about the pastor, the lead pastor. I want to talk about what that key pastor insurance will do if on some physical sides. You know, there's not a lot of data when it comes to pastors' physical being. We know a lot of pastors are stroking out. You pulling it from the pulpit every Sunday. You going in every Sunday. I mean, you putting on the show. You put on the show now, and God is glorified. He's edified. What that's doing, though, is triggering your heart and to be enlarged. Okay, biologically, this is what's happening to you physiologically. So you are enlarging your heart. So every time that happens, when you get into your season phase of ministry where you really can be giving out, what's happening is you're stroking out. We're catching cancer now, and we're catching some physical illnesses in our bodies. And the reality is most pastors don't have the money to be able to pay for those, neither any business owners, etc. But the reality is with key person insurance, there's a plan to be able to take care of that. So if there's a heart attack, if your pastor catches cancer, if you have cystic fibrosis, you have end-stage renal failure, major heart attacks, heart valve replacements, major organ transplants, motor neuron disease, stroke, or sudden cardiac arrest. If any one of these illnesses happen to you, then your church will be able to help you access 100% of the face amount of the key pastor insurance, so you will be able to provide for yourself and your family at no additional cost to them, to the church, and to you. So you and your family will be covered. See, that's the stuff that we're doing. That's next level stuff. I told you, most of you never even known that. There's no plan to provide for you. My heart is to make sure pastors are taken care of. It's our niche market. It's what we love. I know what you're going through. I know your role, but I know at times nobody's going to take care of you. Who in the church going to cut a check for you? Who in the church is going to make sure your family is taken care of? Not few, far and few between people come to you and talk to you like this. And so it's good to be on this platform to be able to educate you quickly so we can make sure that you are able to be protected personally, but also protect your church financially so they can do some ministry down the line. Thank you, Bianca, for having me bring some starter conversation, and hopefully we want to be talking to a lot of pastors.
Thank you so much, Brent. You know, one of the things that I really was really interesting to me, actually, two things that you said. Uh, all of it obviously is great information. You always provide very thorough, well-rounded information. And so thank you so much for covering all of those things that, we as pastors think about, and sometimes we don't even think about that, right? Because we're so involved in the vision, right? We're so involved in the next thing, and there's so many hats that we have to wear. And then there are churches like the church that I pastor where we don't have an XP, right? And so right. I am the senior, I'm the XP, and I do have a board, thank God, and they're wonderful, and they really provide a great support for me. And so and I'm grateful, I'm grateful for what they do, what they bring to the table. But there's so many other things and components. One of the things, I think it was point 6, you said that it will help fund the ministry mission in partnership with banks as collateral. Yo, that is so key. I'm thinking as you were talking, I'm over here thinking, so we got some talking to do. Okay, I'm over here thinking because you have helped me personally recently as it relates to setting up my personal retirement and getting that established. Obviously, I've already had retirement accounts. And so what we're doing is taking that from a personal perspective, combining it and actually making a fund, right? But then from a ministry perspective, this is this key pastor, right?
Right. Did you like that?
Yeah, I like that. That's cool. The key pastor piece. And that is something that obviously we've talked about, but even just hearing that point 6, listen, I mean, I'm thinking about the building and what we have going on. I'm thinking about programs, community programs that we want to do. And sometimes you do have to have that upfront capital to get some things going while waiting on grants, while waiting on other funding for the 501c3 or for that other nonprofit that might be attached to the ministry, right? Sometimes
you take, not to interrupt you, but you take, and this is notable stuff. I mean, I'm not saying anything that's not true. This is notable stuff. This is what happens in business. But if you look at when he was alive, Senator John McCain, when he ran for presidency, in order to get his funding campaign, you can go look this up. He used his key person policy, his life insurance policy, excuse me.
Wow.
So it does more than just provide for life after death. Right. There are some other things and other avenues that you can use this insurance in a way to advance your kingdom mission. And most of us are just not taught or educated. And but at the end of the day, once you get educated, now you know. And like I said, we're helping pastors do this. We're educating their board. Their board is falling in love with it because it protects and it's futuristic. We know that this is not a get rich quick scheme. This is we often educate. Let me go back for a second, because when pastors do get it, we don't educate on the permanent side of the insurance. We educate on the term side, and here's why. We believe that the pastor that's the lead pastor that's in place now is a woman of God, man of God, doing well for the ministry. But we don't know what'll happen tomorrow if there's infidelity problems, if there's a breach in integrity, right? So we need to be able to, and that church board, according to your bylaws, however you guys handle that offense, what will happen is if they need to detach that insurance from that pastor, it's easier to do it from a term insurance perspective rather than a permanent side. And so what happens is the pastor owns the insurance, but the church is the payor.
Understood.
Payor. And so there's a custodial agreement in place that says, okay, if we put key pastor insurance on you, you can't go nowhere for the next 15 years.
Right.
Okay. If you do, we done paying.
Right. Yeah.
Now, whatever the Lord tell you to do, the Lord tell you to do. I know there's not a lot of Kobe Bryant 20 years. Rest in peace, Kobe Bryant, okay? Tom Brady 20 years with the Patriots.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you need to be able to have, especially if you started the ministry.
Right.
So we want to put that in as a custodial agreement, an executive agreement that we can outline for the church, and the pastor's there for the next 10 to 15 years. He doesn't move, and it will make sure that that year payment is on the insurance. But yes, you can use that as collateral, take it to the bank to say, this is what we have. Please honor that. So if it's a $400,000 loan and you guys have $1 million key person policy, key pastor policy, boom, you give them that. If you were to transition tomorrow, the bank receives their proceeds that they gave out, the church receives the rest.
Right. And that's amazing. That 0.6. And then also it does have 0.8, the family inheritance side of it, which is also important, because I find that a lot of, and I actually know some pastors who have retired recently in North Carolina, and they did not have any retirement plan. Essentially, there was an agreement that was determined at their announcement, getting ready for it. But it was more of an agreement to, assist them every month, a certain amount for the next so many years, versus actually having a retirement plan, a succession plan that pays out so that pastor can also live and not have to go and work somewhere after they've retired from the church.
Absolutely. Let me tell you
something. Pastoring 30 years, after pastoring 35 years, 40 years, 20 years, and then having to go get a regular job that they haven't worked probably that many years. Is very difficult and is very straining. And then oftentimes, especially in the African-American community, many of us don't really retire unless we're starting to get sick. We're going to pastor until, come on.
That's right.
Right?
Down in the pulpit.
Come on. But there are those of us who are growing up now, who are new pastors like myself, who have a different mindset about pastoring, about retirement, about life, about family. And we're in this, planning. I'm thinking about it now. I haven't even hit a year yet as it relates to the anniversary from being the installed pastor. I've been the interim pastor for, almost 2 years right before becoming installed. But we're getting ready for this, right? We're planning. Not that I'm about to retire. So members that are on the call, don't get scared. I'm not talking about that. But it takes a plan in place in order to be ready whenever that happens, right? If that's going to be 15, 20 years from now, whatever that is, then there's plans in place. And so this is just really, really awesome. I have a couple more questions. You good?
Let's do it.
Okay. So, and then if there's anyone who is on, I see a couple pastors did join. If you have any questions, we're taking questions at this point from you. So just comment, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook, we can see your comments and we can see your questions. So you can actually ask any questions you have right now. The next question is, so there might be maybe a business owner, small business owner that is watching this as well. And I know that there is obviously the ministry side of things, but there's also the business aspect to ministry as well, which you talked about. Any of these points, these principles, can they also be a transition to a business owner, someone who has a small business right now? We have some people who have thriving businesses in our ministry where they are the entrepreneur. They own, they work, they're also owner operator, right? They work their craft. They may have employees under them, and they're not thinking about succession. They're still thinking about building their kingdom, right? With this, is this kind of policy, is this also offered to them? Is this something that they can do as well?
Absolutely. And I want to take it further for them, because Small business owners are the heroes of America, especially our economic program and stability right now. So you're talking small business, anywhere less than 500 employees, north of $5 to $10 million, but most, I believe, is about 30% or a little more. Don't quote me wrong on this, but have no employees at all, or don't even offer any other benefits to the employees. And so if you're a small business that's actually thriving with a few employees, I would start to think about succession planning immediately. I would be thinking about, what is the exit strategy for me? One of my CEO inspirations is Magic Johnson. I love the way that he's able to reinvent himself into the business world and the mountain that he had to climb. I felt like that resonated with me the most coming out of church into the marketplace and business. It's a mountain that I had to climb. And the reality is, he said, every business I went into, I had a 7-year exit strategy. Well, I believe as business owners, we have to have that same strategy, pastors included. So it may not be 7 years, ours is a little longer, but you have to have an exit strategy. And so taking care of the business management piece to protect the overhead, to protect the budget, in the case you transition, says a lot about your planning skills, because you have to anticipate what can happen in the future. If we think about it, Bezos and Amazon have already prepared. Microsoft has already prepared. When you see the changing of the guards, trust and believe he's always prepared. Like I told you, I study a lot on pastoralship. When John Gray took over Redemption Church, you would see Ron Carpenter go to his new church, and he was telling the story. And he said, listen, I came to the new church, and, we were getting ready to take care of all the insurances. And he said, they were transferring the new key person insurance over to me. So they know that this is an important factor in regards to the operations. Secondly, with business owners, I want to talk about something. There's something called business overhead expense. If you want to put that note up there, Pastor Bianca, please do. It's called business overhead expense. What happens is, if you have a significant amount of overhead, or any overhead for that matter, going out every month, meaning you're paying utility bills, light bills, there are energy bills, there's water bills, employee salaries, mortgages, the building notes. Then what happens is, business overhead expense protects your overhead if you, the business owner, have a full total disability, or you're out and cannot work on a partial injury, or sick to the point where you can't perform your daily occupational duties to the business. So that means while you're home in the bed trying to heal, your business will continue to keep the doors open and pay the employees as if you were still there. This is an insurance policy on the business overhead. It usually lasts north of 1 to 2 years, and you have to renew it every year. But if that happened, the company would reimburse you your overhead. So your company would pay that overhead back, submit the request, and then boom, they send a check so you can continue to pay out your employees, keep the doors open, and business can continue to grow and help further your exit strategy. The same with a church, because you can do the same thing with a 501c3. We can protect the future overhead of the ministry, but we also can protect the current overhead of the ministry. If we need to kind of relate it to what it is, let's just take the PPE program, that the paycheck protection program, and anybody who was paying salaries and paying business expenses, you would receive a check. It's the same way if you had business overhead expense that reimburses your overhead. So these are things that you need to know in ministry. Hey, we're not just pastoring, we're not just getting it in. We also have a backstory. We got a plan, a good, solid financial management plan in place, so we can cover our current overhead on a month-to-month basis, but also we'll cover the future overhead if one of us transitions.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for answering that question. Now, here's another question. I know that you have these particular products and this offer, but also, do you provide? I know that pastoral ministry. This is your passion. You're also in a business, but do you also provide any services to help with that financial planning for expansion of staff? So, for example, right now at St. James, we currently have myself and 2 or 3 other people who are actually on staff, 2 other people who are on staff, right? At some point, I'd like an XP, right? At some point, I'd like a staff pastor who is, over counseling. And so we'll have a pastor of counseling. We have a pastor of, operations, whatever the case is. Do you provide any services to help ministries and or businesses expand from a financial planning perspective to say, okay, this is what you need to do in order to put monies aside to prepare for the salaries of people that you're planning for. And this is what goals we need to get to in order to be able to provide that.
Yes, yes, I do. And the reason I say yes is because I normally come along the board, and on the board as an outsider, not necessarily a member of your ministry, but we're on the board,
like a consultant,
and we're looking as your second pair of eyes. We've advised ministries that if you're going to expand, then you probably want to have 2 to 3 months of that salary already in bank, right? In savings. So therefore, we're not taking out massive loans in order to do it, or we're not leaning in too much on the people, which means that if we have to have 2 to 3 months of that salary that we want to pay, then we probably need to kind of retract from some things that we're currently doing. So we can't start this ministry with $20,000 that's costing us $20,000 a year. We may need to reallocate those dollars to that, so we have a plan moving forward. So yes, I will come alongside your board and be that second set of eyes, and we'll look at some business assets and liabilities. And most of these, I love to say this, most of the churches, Pastor Bianca, are fiscally astute. Most of our clients, I'm not a person to say that you're doing it wrong. I'm not that person. I promise you, I can come in and just work with you and make sure you thrive. And my job is to plug those loopholes. Remember sustainability. I'm here to say that'll keep you sustainable. That won't. That'll keep you sustainable. That won't.
Right. Which is great. Awesome. So that's an awesome thing. Now, what about businesses? Do you also would offer that to maybe some small businesses? Because I know that I have at least one small business owner watching right now.
Okay. Yes. Actually, I just got contacted today to come into the business to help with employee continuity and building up the employees and chemistry and culture and things of that nature. So yes, my highest competency is culture. And how can that's my highest competency. I mean, I thrive very well in setting the culture, setting the tone. And so, part of that, what we're doing is about culture. So if we have a culture of preparation, a culture of sustainability, a culture of getting to the next level and expanding, then I'm the guy to be able to help set that out, me and our firm. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been a awesome session. I enjoy this. We can talk about business and finance. Going, and this session was a little bit longer than I intended, but I wanted to make sure that we properly answered some of these questions, and then also able to kind of talk to the audience that's viewing right now, that I know is viewing right now, so that we can give some tidbits on how they can improve as it relates to that sustainable economic future and get on that plan. So thank you so much, Brent. I really appreciate your time. Thank you. And for those of you who would like to contact Brentley Wright, give us your contact information. Maybe we can put it in the comments. And then if you can do that, that would be great. And how we can connect with you. I know that you're on Facebook.
Yes, follow me on Facebook. We have a company page, Brentley Financial. You can follow us there, just like it is on my shirt. follow us on our page. That's our kind of our digital hub. My website, I just put into the comments, BrentleyFinancial.com. Send me an email, shoot me your email, your phone number. I would definitely reach out. Our phone number is on the website as well. And it'll also come in form of call and text.
Okay, good deal. And I have a few comments. Okay, good. I think we answered that question. How can we contact the firm? If you contact the firm through that website, that will be great. All right. Anything else? Any burning you have, man?
You know what? I just want, I really want pastors to win. And I think you can. And I know one of the things that we can do is have proper management. And the only way, if you implement this stuff and take care of your family, I know God, heaven gonna bless you. I know that.
Yeah, good deal, good deal. And one of the things where we connect, obviously, is I've been in church all of my life. Okay, I've been in church all my life. I have relatives who are pastors. My grandmother was the mother of the church. Daddy built the church. Grandfather built the church, and all these things. So ministry and church is very near and dear. Also, one of the things that's really, really near and dear is to ensure that not just the ministry and the pastor is successful, but also the members. And so that's the reason why I keep going to this. Hey, tell me to do this with businesses, because I know that I have my members who are starting businesses soon, who are in business right now, who didn't even know they were going to go into business. But after this particular pandemic, are having to go into business in order to sustain themselves. Absolutely. And so, if they decide to take this business that they've created in the pandemic into the future, how can we make this sustainable? How can we make this? And so I just want to make sure that not only am I going to be empowered as a pastor, and I'm going to be empowered as a business person, a consultant, the ministry is going to be empowered, but also that our members and our friends are going to be empowered as well. I want my pastor friends, to retire with me, and we can, travel something and have the funds to do it. You know what I mean? And all those things, right? I want that to be able to happen, and also our members, because I just think that is so important for us not to just be so spiritually minded that we're no earthly good. We still have families. We still have people that we care about. We still have our health that we have to think about as well, and our well-being that we have to think about as well. And all those things are real. This is what this is all about. So thank you so much for being a part of our life sessions. This is why we're doing this, and I really, really appreciate your time and your knowledge.
Much love.
God bless you. God bless you. God bless you. And so listen, everybody, I hope that you enjoyed this particular live session. Let's reach out to Brentley Wright if you are interested in any of the products and the things and the advisement that he has provided. Indeed, we're going to continue live sessions like this coming up, and we will have a few more that I will announce very soon. More like this, and you never know, we might have Brent back on to talk about another subject matter as it relates to finances, or maybe we might bring him on to teach the word. Listen, he really is a man of God and astute as it relates to the word of God. So thank you so much for joining us on YouTube, Facebook. If you have any questions, you can contact us in direct message. You can contact us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and also our website. God bless you and have a wonderful, wonderful evening.